name's Saba Al Hassan. I have a lip ring. I buy my clothes from thrift shops. I get periods, and I'm a scientist. The big theme with Biota is that we're trying to highlight ecosystems that people are maybe underrating. And I think a lot of people that are even from California might not even know about Merced or the Merced vernal pools, and I definitely didn't until I came here. And so it's been really insightful to learn like all the things that are going on here just in our own backyard. When we first visited the Merced Vernal Pools and Grasslands Reserve, it was November and it was brown. It was really beautiful, but it was quiet, and we didn't see the vibrant habitat that the researchers had described, at least not at first.
This campus is very unique in that it's positioned right next to this amazing vernal pools and grassland reserve, which is 6,500 acres. But beyond that, it's nestled right in the center of California, which is a biodiversity hotspot for the world. And so it's a really great place to do ecology and evolutionary research.
These kind of landscapes are very important because they're like a natural sponge. And so what happens is when the rainfall comes in, that water enters the soil. And because there's what's called a hard pan or water restricting layer close to the surface, that water is collecting on that hard pan and forming basically a water table right below our feet.
I'm studying the chemical and physical hydrology of the vernal pools. With these water samples, I'll be looking at its isotope and also the changes in major ions. So hopefully that will paint a picture of how these pools are hydrologically connected and how they change throughout its seasonal cycle.
Now, historically, Central Valley, San Joaquin Valley, and north of the Sacramento Valley, we had 1.5 million acres of this kind of habitat. But due to conversion for agriculture, orchards, row crops, and then more recently, housing developments and industry, we've lost a lot of that sponge. So what that means is with the loss of this grassland and these habitats, we've not only lost a lot of the species or some species associated with this and the area of these habitats, but we've lost the area that water would enter and temporarily be stored, which is part of the reason we have a lot of flooding, especially earlier in the season. And I'm glad you agree with that.
The first thing we noticed on the reserve were the cows, and there were a lot. They may seem like mere dairy producers, but they're actually serving and maintaining the ecosystem.
Shh, don't bite me.
I see a lot of mutualism amongst the organisms and the ecosystem itself.
Like what kind of examples?
So even the cows you see here, like I was explaining earlier, they eat the invasive grasses that allows the non-invasive grasses to thrive and not be choked out. And another example is the squirrels. They dig their burrows, and those burrows become homes for California tiger salamanders and burrowing owls and some species that you would only find near a vernal pool or on this reserve. And they wouldn't have a home if it weren't for the squirrels. So there's a nice balance between common species like the squirrels and cows and the native species to a vernal pool where they can survive and thrive.
Vernal pools host many unique endangered organisms such as tiger salamanders and fairy shrimp, and you wouldn't notice that until you took a closer look.
A kestrel is a falcon species, so it's the smallest falcon in North America. They're fairly common throughout North America and can be seen throughout the Merced County. We're mostly interested in understanding the diet breadth of the kestrels. Not every single box has a wide variety. Some boxes will have more birds and less arthropods, and some boxes will only have grasshoppers. Some boxes will only consume mammals, and one box was the only box to have reptiles in it.
So my research focuses on understanding patterns of evolution and genetic diversity in reptiles and amphibians. So this summer we're focusing on trying to understand the ecological impacts of colour pattern traits in different lizards across California. So we're going to be looking at a few different species that are pretty common, side-blotch lizard, the western fence lizard, and the tree lizard. And what we do is we catch a lizard using an extendable fishing pole with a little slip knot noose made of either dental floss or string. We catch the lizard that way, and then we take a bunch of colour measurements from the lizard itself, and we also take some colour measurements of the background habitat, some ecological measurements from around where we catch the lizard. We also take a bunch of what we call morphometric measurements, measuring limb lengths, body size, body mass, things like that. And finally, what we'll do is usually take a sample of tail tissue for our genetic analysis.
Aquatic plants sprout in the pool shortly after water disappears.
Meadowfoam is a species that is quite well adapted to this vernal pool life, which starts out as an aquatic phase, like pools or ponds, and the plant has to put up initial leaves that can deal with being in an aquatic environment just like any pond plant would. But then the trick of the vernal pool plants is that they transition from a very wet, completely aquatic environment to almost a desert ephemeral environment, and they only have a set amount of time to do that, to complete their life cycles. And that's why vernal pool plant species are unique. Not all species of plants obviously can live in vernal pools, and so that's their trick.
Well, the organisms that live in vernal pools, they present an amphibious behavior. So one of the interests that we have is to see how the endophytes are behaving in vernal pools plant specialists. Endophyte is a type of organism, microorganism. They live inside the plants without causing disease. This relationship can provide to the plants like some resistance to the environment, some adaptation behavior. So maybe these plants in vernal pools that they have this amphibious behavior, maybe it's because of the organisms that are living inside. What is really cool about vernal pools that we only found in Mediterranean ecosystems. There's only 5 places in the world that we have Mediterranean climate.
So the remaining 5% or less of vernal pool habitat in California is restricted to the margins of the California Central Valley. Eastern Merced County harbors some of the most abundant vernal pools left in the state of California. What's really cool with vernal pools is you have these rings that basically develop on the outside of the pool, and as the pool dries down, then you get these different zonations of plant species.
I've been traveling all over the West for the past 3 years, collecting seeds of relatively common, geographically widespread plant species, and the vernal pools was a good reserve for us to visit in California because it's very likely that those species are adapted to live in a sort of atypical habitat compared to the same species in different locations throughout California or the rest of the country.
We get a lot of habitat information for these organisms by mapping with UAVs.
What fascinates me is the use of technology, such as laser scanners, or what we refer to as LiDAR detection and ranging, to be able to take precise measurements within a centimeter or two over vast areas. And I use that information in a number of different ways. In particular, I'm really fascinated by topography, the undulating hills, the valleys, the creeks, and the vernal pools themselves, how they're formed and how they persist, how long they retain water, and how long it takes for that water to drain away. So I've been working with 2 graduate students, Lorenzo Booth and Brendan Smith, to develop new ways of using unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, also known as drones, to be able to do this high resolution mapping.
My research interests are more around hydrologic models. I kind of believe that we can improve the way we manage our resources, especially our water resources in California, through a more data-driven approach.
My research centers around drone applications in environmental sampling and environmental monitoring. Okay, so today we're gonna fly the DJI S1000 equipped with a LiDAR unit, light detection and ranging. Essentially what it does is it gives us distances relative to the UAV, and from there we can replicate the environment in 3D on a computer through post-processing.
It is our last day filming here at the reserve, and so it's kind of exciting because, we started embarking, I guess our first day was in November. It was dry and yellow, and we were in this similar area. And now we're back in March, which is, our last day of filming on the reserve. for this episode, and there's all these great wildflowers that you can see popping up. It rained this past week. We've gotten over 100% rain in the Central Valley than we usually get, which is mostly because of El Nino.
If we can't, as a species, learn how to coexist with other species that we could, we're going to run into some serious problems once we continue filling up this planet.
Perhaps looking at those interactions just right in our own backyard, as cliche as that may sound, is what we need to see how valuable our own backyards actually are through symbiosis.
Yeah, so I mean, I would love the help. I'm picking multiple vernal pools in my thesis project, and I'm going to need a lot of help getting in. So I'd love to have volunteers, members from the community, members from even high schools or community colleges to come in and give me a hand. So you contact me. I'm more than interested in getting people involved and educated.
I'm Associate Director of the Merit Writing Program, and I co-coordinate Core 1 General Education, and I also help out with Engineering Service Learning here. And all these things are really geared towards, from my perspective, a focus on sustainability. Our role in putting together the Naturalist app is to really catalog what's here in the reserve and to create a resource that people can use, everyone from scientists to the local community to students that come out here from K through 12 up to through the university. So we want to have a database that shows the species, plants, animals, the geomorphology of the place, a suggested trail through here, and also opportunities to tag species, kind of like the iNaturalist app does, so that we can create a better database of where we've seen certain species.
It's also a symbiotic relationship here with the campus, since a lot of undergraduate students get the opportunity to come out, look at a live American kestrel, be in the process of banding it, and get to see nestlings and really biology happening like in person up front. And
we could train people to do some of this. So maybe high school students or junior high school students would be interested to come out and participate.
Community involvement in setting up baseline data sets like this, and then ongoing management and filling those data sets with future climate change is a symbiosis that's fruitful for community and scientific benefit.
Symbiosis between human and the environment is very important, because cultural heritage and natural heritage are results of the interaction between the humans and the environment. We want to involve volunteers, we want to involve the communities, the local communities of California and in general around the world in the preservation of heritage, being engaged on a daily basis or monthly basis, helping us monitoring the sites, because there are a lot of California state parks, there are a lot of national parks where we have a lot of visitors.
It's a nice day today, and it's a good day to be out filming. Nice way to, I guess, wrap up our last day.